In case you were wondering whether there's any racism in the Trump administration, consider this wild fact. So you know how they've basically stopped anybody from coming to the United States claiming refugee status? Well, they've decided to put an asterisk on that, and they're going to allow 8,000 South African Afrikaners to come here as refugees. Those are white people, by the way. So why are the white South Africans allowed to be classified as refugees and come to the United States, but a refugee from El Salvador is not allowed to, or a refugee from Panama, or a refugee from Peru? Why aren't they allowed? Well, I'll give you it's one thing. They're brown, those South Africans are white. There is very little evidence that these Afrikaners are being persecuted at home. The government's saying, we're not doing anything.
Another day, another meltdown, because Donald Trump is allowing refugees to come in after banning pretty much all refugees, and I'm saying that with big air quotes, from coming in from other nations, and allowing refugees from South Africa to come in. Now, obviously, this is controversial because, again, everybody's been banned. He really hasn't been allowing anyone to come in. The policy has been, if you're a refugee, to remain in Mexico. So technically, they're getting some sort of adjudication, an administrative process going, so that they can, bring it through the courts and determine if their refugee status is going to be allowed, and then that will enable them to come into the United States. So it still happens. It just doesn't happen like it did under Sleepy Joe, where people just waltz across the border and come in on boats like crazy. But with these South African refugees, they're basically allowing them right in, and CNN is not happy about it.
So what's the difference between the refugees that they're talking about here and those refugees? I could guess. I mean, I think everyone...
They're white.
They're white. Thank you. They are white. And I think, look, if that is how you feel, fine, then hold the line. But there are people all over the world, even people in this country right now, who are who have sought asylum, who are going through the process of asylum seeking, and have been detained by ICE and are being deported. There's also a genocide happening in the Congo right now that I don't see any Congolese being getting relief to come to this country. So there are Afghanis that helped us in Afghanistan that we have left behind. Even the last administration didn't do right by them. This administration can do right by them, but they are not, because it doesn't fit the narrative of the type of immigrants that we want in our country.
And even saying, there is also a genocide happening in Congo. We got to be careful about acknowledging
that
there's
not
a genocide in South Africa.
That's right. There is no genocide.
No, of course, we're agreeing there. I mean, certainly there are white people in South Africa who have been victims of crimes. That happens all over the world. That certainly does not entitle someone to the level of persecution to be entitled to asylum in the United States. When we, as a nation, are turning away people, forget the woke stuff. I mean, literally, people who assisted the United States military in Afghanistan are not being admitted to this country now in favor of white South Africans under some genocide narrative that is just nonsense.
Now, I got another clip with MSDNC melting down here as well, which is, in my opinion, is even worse than the CNN meltdown.
Trump has virtually halted refugee admission in America for people fleeing war and famine in places like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Back with Rick, Mark, and Eddie. Rick Stengel.
Yes, it's so deeply and morally wrong-headed and repulsive. These are the descendants of the people who created the most diabolical system of white supremacy in human history, apartheid, is that the Afrikaners have become the darling of these right-wing white supremacist movements around the world, that it's like the lost cause for them. It's like the old Confederacy. They're held up as these white Christians who are being dispossessed of their land. It's like this is a modern replacement theory. Actually, there's no injustice here. As you mentioned, it's taking places away from refugees who are really being crushed by authoritarian governments and military governments. For these folks who have never had anything happen to them. I mean, Trump amazingly called it a genocide, one of the worst lies I've ever heard him say. There's just been a small handful of farmers that have been killed over the past 10 years. So it's just a farce and a sham and a moral ugliness. It's like a Batman movie or something where all the bad guys get collected under one roof. I mean, like, who else do you now go and find other racists who have repressed people and give them refugee status here? It's just I don't know where it goes from here, but I mean, you even said it. It's like a headline from The Onion. I don't even know how to get more extreme than this.
The Trump administration is a lot of things, but one thing it certainly is a white nationalist project. The sense around the assault on voting rights and civil rights is all about who will have the decision-making power to determine who will run the country. And here, this idea that the republic must remain a white nation is evidenced in this move, which is so explicit that it cannot be denied. And so when we don't describe it for what it is, we become, in an ironic way, complicit in what they're doing. It's a white nationalist agenda, it seems to me.
Trump administration, they're saying that essentially these white South Africans assimilate better and they're also not as much of a security risk. That's really causing a lot of people to be appalled, frankly. And I also should tell people that this violence that they're talking about that are dealing with these Afrikaners, I've been hearing from people that say there is violence in South Africa, but it's affecting everybody of every single race, Katie.
Now, guys, I want to point out a clear difference here in the refugees. I'm going to show you guys some clips between these white South African refugees and some of the colored folks from some of these other nations. Take a quick look and let me know if you can spot the difference.
Flashback.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you got some civilized people, you know, clean looking, look like they're ready to work, you know, coming in with the family, you know, waving American flag, not their nation's flag. They're coming in with American flags and everything. Some of the people even got the freaking Trump hat on.
And I was so excited. I felt so relieved. It just felt like a lifeline.
In February, Trump issued an executive order that called for the US to resettle Afrikaner refugees.
And then these other people are just coming in through the boats and, you know, trying to climb across the border, trying to go under all these barriers. There's different classes of people. So it seems to me like the Democrats basically want a bunch of bottom feeders to come in and feed off of the American taxpayers' teeth. Donald Trump is bringing in people who actually know how to work, are skilled, and actually civilized people that are probably going to be productive people. Now, what's sad here is that being productive and civilized is considered a white thing. And people just being unruly and animalistic is considered everyone else besides white people thing. And I blame the Democrats for that, because I think that everybody in general should be civilized and not some wild and crazy animal as it relates to trying to get the things that they want, such as refugee status. And for the record, if you come in through a port of entry, it's always considered allowable for you to potentially make it into the, well, they're not going to probably let you in right now because there was too many people trying to come in. But in general, that is legal to do. It's still illegal to just kind of just be in the country like forever and let the green cards expire and all this sort of stuff, or to enter the country like the people on the boats that you saw earlier. That's straight up a felony, and you can be deported immediately. No chance to rebuke that. But if you come in through a port of entry, then yeah, you start to get a lot more legal protection. Now, there's a debate about whether or not there is an actual genocide going on here in South Africa. And I'll say, no, there's not like a genocide per se. So you could consider that an embellishment if you like, right? Like they say that the overall volume of people killed. I do think, like, if you look at this other clip here, this guy tries to say, well, there's way more black people killed than white people, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because of course, if the population is vast majority black, that number would be almost impossible. If there was more white people killed than black people, that would mean that there were basically no white people left at all in South Africa. You got to look at percentage. So if you got a certain amount of white people killed and there ain't even really that many people who live there to begin with, then yeah, you may have an issue on your hands. And let's not forget that these people, for those who don't know, if anybody doesn't know what this is about, and maybe I should have mentioned this earlier, but they were promised, the government promised that they were going to take the land back. They said, you stole the land, we're taking it back.
We will expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek refugee in America.
And what doesn't make any sense is all the black folks melting down about this, and the white liberals, of course, melting down about, well, you know, they're going to melt down about everything because that's, I guess, what they get paid to do. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, okay, let's say you are African, which, I mean, technically all black people for the most part are from Africa. But let's say you actually like still live there. It's good for them. They're leaving and going to America. That's number one. And number two, if you look at the situation here in America, imagine if our government passed some sort of legislation where we're giving back all the land stolen from Native Americans. That means that if you black, white, Asian, Indian, like really from India, so not Native America, actual Indian, they said all that land's going back to Native Americans because we technically all stole it, even if black people was brought here mainly as slaves. I mean, you know, we had no right to the land either. Technically, it was Native American land. So imagine if they did that and everything you owned was about to be upended. It would be the same type of logic. You'd be like, hey, I'm about to not have nothing. They're literally just going to take everything, and there's nothing I could do about it because that's what the law says. So I think you'd want some sort of refuge as well. What happened with the rest of the world is a bunch of people just started leaving their country, not seeking asylum. 9 out of 10 asylum cases is rejected because they're fraudulent. And most of these people are coming from all these third world countries with fraudulent cases. They might be poor, there might be crime, but is there some sort of actual genocide or anything like that going on? No, there was like some stuff going on in Venezuela, in Haiti, and maybe a few other places, but those are like some of the most well-known ones where they have recent stuff going on. In places like that, it makes sense to bring in some people, especially if they're non-criminal people. But as far as everybody else, the vast majority of those people weren't real asylees anyway. And also, for all the black people melting down, again, a lot of the people coming in, I know Trump mentions like Congo and stuff like that sometimes, but the vast majority of people coming in were not from the Congo. They were from a bunch of other countries, again, like Venezuela, El Salvador, things like that. They ain't got nothing to do with black people. So why the hell does everybody in the black community and these white liberals care so much about people that ain't got nothing to do with them?
Him and Elon Musk are racist twats who have no fucking idea what they're talking about. Because what they're doing is taking the word of a fringe racist group called AfriForum and other disaffected whites, disgruntled by the end of apartheid.
It doesn't make any sense to me unless...
These are the only folks that the Trump administration deems worthy enough to be welcomed into our country. Someone tried to turn this on me the other day and say, I'm the racist because I'm upset that white refugees are being let in. I'm not upset that white refugees are being let in. I'm upset that this is the only group the Trump administration deems worthy enough to come into our country.
But whether they're white or black makes no difference to me, but white farmers are being brutally killed and their land is being confiscated in South Africa, and the newspapers and the media, television media, doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they'd talk about it. That would be the only story they'd talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible. I have people that live in South Africa. They say it's a terrible situation taking place.
That doesn't make any sense at all. If anything, you're more connected with the people from Africa because at least they're from Africa. A lot of people from this nation, including me, inevitably are from Africa. There's not going to be any challenges with trying to speak the same language. You're not going to have a bunch of people, a bunch of funds going to them. It's so few people that are coming in, at least so far, that you're not going to have to worry about a bunch of new inflation and a bunch of prepaid cards going out to literally millions of people, in the tens of millions of people. They said it was like 50 people showed up. So why the crying? It's always crying with Trump. If anything gets old, that's what gets old. Stop crying, man. I understand you might be frustrated about certain things, but you got a handful of people coming in that's white. That's a problem. But all of these other brown people that don't have no real asylum claim to begin with, the people in South Africa do. I showed you the video. Hey, we taking y'all land. These other people are not getting their land took. They don't own any damn land. They're poor. Like, they're just going to take your land. They were literally trying to force people to rent these people. They were putting the people in hotels and trying to force people who own houses to make sure that they had availability to illegal migrants and making their life difficult, even trying to change laws to make it where you like had to give over the property to like illegal migrants and stuff if they were a heavy migrant area. Like, there's all kinds of different things that were going on. And nobody seems to care about that, but all of a sudden it's all this freaking pearl clutching with Donald Trump. And it's sickening. He's the president. It's President Trump to me and everybody else. Okay, he's the president. He can do whatever he wants to do, and he has valid reasons. If you think it's about race and white people, hey, white people ain't coming in from everywhere. He didn't open up asylum to there's white people in other parts of the world too, besides South Africa. You know, there's white people in Europe too. Okay, but he specifically said South Africa. They're talking about taking their land and some people going in and killing them. That's what's happening. So he didn't say we open it up to Australia, in Europe, and South Africa, and Russia, since everybody claims that he loves Russia. He didn't say none of that. So what the hell are these? Nothing that these people say adds up. 2 + 2 does not equal 4 with these people. It equals 5, and they're trying to make 5 make sense when 2 + 2 is 4. But these are just my thoughts, guys. Do you think that it's related to race, or do you think that there is an actual legitimate asylum claim? Just showed you the video, but I mean, is the video wrong? I mean, the guy, they did pass legislation that said that they could do it. So they didn't just talk. They passed the legislation where they could take the land. Have they taken anybody's land yet? No, they haven't. But can they do it today if they want to? Abso-freaking-lutely. So in my opinion, is asylum worthy? But that's just my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I appreciate you watching the Black Anomaly Rising channel. I'm out.
President Trump, I see a lot of liberals wants to tell you what's going on in South Africa. Well, on ground level, our situation is dismal. And yes, you are correct in your assumption that South Africa is a failed state. We are experiencing a war-like situation with more than 22,000 people being murdered each year, hundreds of thousands of people being affected by crime each year. Thousands of our people and children are being murdered and raped on a daily basis.